Well, g'day, Max here again. Welcome back to the shop. So this will be part 6 in our JFMT lathe overhaul. So this episode we'll look into the headstock, and we'll have a look also in where the change wheels and electric motor are. We'll try and get the oil drained out of the feed box, and on the rear of this lathe is this. Behind the electrical cabinet there's a oil reservoir, separate oil tank for the headstock and filter. So we'll do our best to have a bit of a bo peep in there and see what's going on. So I actually had to go and get myself a new camera because the old iPad I was filming on, what I filmed last, I couldn't, or during the editing process, it come out looking like shit. So I scrapped it and we'll go again. So I've got to learn how to drive this camera. This is an older GoPro 8, which is about half the cost of a GoPro 10 here in Australia. So this is about a $400. This was, yeah, just under $400, 390 something dollars. The later GoPro 10s over here, you don't get much change out of $800. But that's just the camera, of course. Then you've got all the accessories that you need to go with it. So the GoPro 8 should be a big step up to what I had previously. So hopefully we'll get some clearer, not so wobbly shots. That's the plan anyway. So what I'll do is I think we'll pop the lid off the headstock of the lathe first. We'll see what's going on in there. Fingers crossed we're not going to have any issues and have to do anything to it. Famous last words. So, oh, even got a remote so I can turn yours on and off. Turn you off. Okay, let's pop the lid off. We'll see what we can see. We'll give the inside a bit of an inspection. Bit of a wild and woolly old day out there today. It's blowing a gale. The wife was mowing the lawn around the house yesterday, and we've just started spring, winter's over. First of the old Joe Blakes came out, or snakes. Yeah, so she got a bit of a fright. It's only a baby one, but there'll be more, and Mum and Dad will be around somewhere. So yeah, we just have to be really vigilant over the next month. Yeah, snakes come out of hibernation, and they're usually a bit grumpy when they come out. So let's get a rag. There's one there. Yeah, so they're usually a bit grumpy when they come out. They've been in hibernation all winter, so they're out looking for food. So the ones we get here in Perth in the Swan Valley are dugites and tiger snakes. I haven't seen any tiger snakes around this area, but they'll go you, they'll chase you, and highly venomous. And the dugites, which are more common around here, another one, very highly, extremely venomous snake. Yeah, real badass things they are. And generally they don't attack you unless they're cornered. They'll just piss off somewhere, but yeah, you got to be really, really vigilant. So alright, it's got a bit of weight to this. I'll just open this door a bit just to get a bit of clearance. Okay. Pop her over here. Okay, well, everything looks good. Okay, we'll get a torch, bring in, have a look. Now everything does appear to be in quite good condition in this headstock. Very good condition. So what I'm looking at is the edges of the teeth where they engage into each other. Just the rounded lead-in edges. There's no chipping or wear or anything like that on them. The other thing I'm looking at, it's a triple bearing headstock this, so you've got a bearing at the end, of course your main bearing at the front, and there's a bearing in the middle. This bearing in the middle is where you carry out your bearing adjustment, and that's in there. So if I can get the torch down into there. So when I rotate the headstock, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the rollers in the bearing. I'll get you a bit closer. Now all of the rollers are rotating, so that tells me this machine, the headstock bearing adjustment is still in adjustment, so it still has its preload. The other thing I'm looking at is the adjuster ring, which is that black nut in behind that gear. Put the torch somewhere. Now there's lock tabs that go into that gear to lock the nut in position. Now that one there's folded over, and if I go around the rest of them, it's the only one that's ever been folded over. So it's never had a spindle bearing adjustment, and the bearing still has preload. So that means this is looking like this headstock's in very good condition, so that's a good thing. So we'll have a look now, we'll get down and we'll have a poke around the change gears and the end of the lathe. There's a couple of areas right down the bottom of the headstock casting and just in the front corners, just where I'm shining the torch. There is a bit of shit there, and the same right down the bottom corner of the casting there on the other side. I'd say that's just shit that hasn't been cleaned out properly from manufacturing, so I'll clean that out, and it doesn't appear to have come from anywhere else, so I'll clean that out, and then she's good to go. Okay, looking in the end of the headstock there, or the drive end. So we have our change gears here. This one here's got a lot of play in it, so I'll have to address that. The limit switch for the door, that's zip tied closed, so something we'll have to have a look at. Now there is a very minor oil leak coming from this area here. It could be from behind one of these gears where they go in. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean it all down, and when we've got the machine running, and then we'll go back and investigate that. This is the oil pump for the feed change box, and the oil filler which is on top there, and the drain plug is just here, nice and accessible. Getting to the electric motor and brake assembly, so it just has like a drum brake on the end of the pulley on the electric motor. I can't feel any wear on the pulleys. Upper or lower pulleys, they're all good. The belts are reasonable, so we'll run these belts again. I was thinking of pulling the motor out of it and putting a new set of bearings in, and I want to do an inspection on the brake as well, so I may still go ahead and do that. I actually should do, really. And then we'll give us all a good clean down, and when it's running we can see what's leaking under here. That's the locking nuts for the rear bearing. Now the rear bearing is a non-adjustable bearing. It's one you don't have to ever mess with, as the main adjuster we explained before was up in the one down here. So that's good. So yeah, I think I think we'll hook the motor out and do an inspection, put some new bearings in the motor, and have a look at this brake, make sure everything's as it should be there. So that's good, we don't have to do too much here. Right, so there's nothing further to be gained by poking around in here anymore, so we can put the lid back on. So I'm just going to use it's a Loctite gasket, high flex gasket maker. So you don't, it's not my preference to use elastic on this sort of stuff, so we don't need much of the stuff, it's only a very little amount. Okay, that should be heaps. As you can see, it's only a very small bead of the stuff we've got around there. So our lid can go on. Make sure we get it on the right way around. That's it. Now there was no seal or anything under that lid, and I actually don't believe it's probably ever been off before, due to the fact that Mr. Elastic hasn't been in there. Make sure we're pushed hard up in the joint here. Now just snug them down, they don't need to be stupidly tight or anything like that. That's all they need. Now you know you've got the right amount of gasket material on, where it's not just oozing out everywhere. Yeah, so as you can see, it's not oozing out everywhere around the sides. So that's what we're looking for. Right, we'll get on to the next thing we're going to tackle. So I think we'll have a poke around in our casing in here. Okay, we should probably have a look and see what's going on here. So it just has this funky looking horseshoe shaped keeper. It drops over the shaft to keep the gear on. There's a fair bit of play in that, so I'm not liking that. So I did manage to get a copy of the manuals for this machine, so I'll just make sure that there's nothing missing here. So off with the gear. So the gears go onto a little splined adapter. So these are a fibre gear. The fit on the adapter is quite good. So there's no issue there. However, the fit on here is a bit like the old proverbial cock in a shirt sleeve. So they obviously I do not know what's gone on there. It doesn't seem to have been, yeah, I don't think it's worn that much. It doesn't look like there's enough wall or enough clearance left for a bush if there was a missing bush. I think we're going to have to sleeve it. It'll either be, depends if this is hardened, we might be able to put a thin sleeve in it, thin bronze sleeve. So, okay, so we'll remove this and we'll take it over, and that's a job we can do over in the other shop. When I cleaned out the headstock, I had this Blue Point extendable magnet, and it was able to get in there and pick up all the crap that was in there. So yeah, I forgot to show that earlier. So, okay, so I'll just pull this whole quadrant off and we can find out what's holding all this stub shaft in. Allen key. Spacer. The shaft looks good, there's no wear in that. Now this should be adjustable. Oh, there it goes. Just don't think it's been moved in a long time, it's a bit stiff. Tell you what, it's a solid setup. Okay. Okay, so we have a square on the end of that, and obviously that's got, it looks like that's where you put the spanner to slacken it off to release it from the nut here. So, okay, that's an easy one. So we'll take care of that over the other shop. So now what we're going to do is we'll drain the oil out the feed box. So the feed box drain plug is conveniently located down the end here. So I watched a few people do this on YouTube and make a hell of a mess of it. Yeah, well, that's nice and clean. So that's a good thing. So we should see the oil coming, we should see that sight glass drop down. So the last dregs, we are starting to get a Bit of scum come out of it. So I'll let that ooze for a bit. Interesting thing, our sight glass is still half full, so it's possible that that's plugged up on the internal vent holes of the sight glass with ooze. So we might have to prise that out and see what's going on. There's a good one coming through. So we'll give us a poke. I think that's just mainly formed from like condensation and through more, moisture. Regular oil changes, you won't get that. Have a poke around in there. Throw a bit of Kero down it, help clean it out a bit. Give it a swirl around. So I've drained the Kero out. Just putting a bit of oil in now. So that'll do for now. So I just use a little pump in the oil container. Only way to do it. Watch people make a hell of a mess of it, messing around with funnels and shit like that. We'll give our gears a bit of a twirl around. That was just a bit of 15W40 engine oil. It will be refilled. We will be draining this out. I'll only put a little bit in, and we'll fill it with 68 grade hydraulic oil. I'm going to pop that sight glass out and give that a clean. Okay, that should be right. This is just purely to flush any remaining Kero out. Okay, so I'll let that drain. So just using the blade of a Leatherman, I'm just very carefully prying the seal out. Oh, not seal, sight glass, sorry. Okay, that's got it. So I can give that a good clean now, as it shows a fair bit of staining going on inside it. Also gives me the opportunity to have a look inside. Yeah, I can see a fair bit of scunge still sitting there. Probably shouldn't have done that. Okay, well, I'll have a clean inside there and bring you back. So I pulled the other sight glass out as well, and yeah, there's a little tube that feeds it. So this one tells you the oil pump is in fact pumping, and from what I can see it looks pretty good inside. So having a poke around in there with the Allen key, just dirt, it's just crap that's in there. At least we get some of it out. There's no chunky bits or teeth or metal or anything like that, so that's really good. Just dirt, rubbish, well, who knows, brown gunk. So we'll keep it that till we get it a bit cleaner. Okay, so if our pump's working, we should have an oil flow running down here. So I mentioned earlier on that I'd managed to pick up a couple of manuals for the lathe, the JFMT lathe. Funny thing is, as I've mentioned before, there's a copy of a Mazak. So we open up the book, parts book, Mazak 860. Mazak. We go to the other book. We want second page. Specifications, J1MK lathe, J1MK 860, specification of Mazak lathe. So our one is 20, yeah, this one here, the 21 inch swing. So yeah, interesting. The old Chinese, eh? Tell you what, they've done a really good job on this this machine. It is a top quality piece of gear. I'll give them that. So anyway, I had the manuals dug out because I was after the quantity of oil that came out of that the feed gearbox, Now I drained out about 10 litres of oil. It says here change twice a year, quantity 1.5 litres. I drained 10 litres out, so she was overfull to the shithouse. So while we were running the machine off the shaft with the electric drill, we found our oil leak. So there's a cover plate goes over this here, which is here, with this gasket, and the screws were not that tight. So over time the screws had just backed off and the oil was leaking out of here, as this is a pressure fed bearing. So hopefully that's the only leak, and we'll get this button back up. So the last little thing on the apron feed box is, I was just checking to make sure all these other bolts were tight. As we mentioned, these weren't, and it was leaking. I checked these ones and these weren't that tight either, but when I started to tighten up it felt like it was pulling up against the bearing, like something felt a bit weird. So anyway, I pulled it off. So when I pulled it off, the little spring on the oil seal wasn't sitting in the seal properly, it was hanging down. But when I put the cover back on and hold it, look, if I sight down the edge, I do see a very slight air gap in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a gasket to go between this face and the machine face here, because what's the point of having an oil seal there sealing on the shaft where the oil, this is only a steel shielded bearing, so the oil will go through. There's nothing stopping it from leaking out of here. So we'll get a thin piece of gasket paper. I've got a piece over at the other shop, and we'll cut out a gasket for that, and then that'll be all tickety-boo, as they say. That's the feed box complete. So all I do now is I put the required 1.5 litres of oil in and just see how far up the sight glass it does come with the measured amount in. So we'll leave this one at that. So this one took a bit longer than what I had anticipated, without feed box repairs, inspection and oil flush out and replenish. So we'll close this one off here, and I think the next video will be over in the other shop to catch up on some of the machining jobs that we have to do in regards to the repairs on this machine. And when we're back out here next in the new shop, we'll tackle the in behind here, there's the oil reservoir for the headstock. So, and we'll service the filter, see if we've got to buy another filter, which we probably will do. And I've just noticed when I read the manual, the oil top up for the headstock, they want you to remove the top of the headstock to replenish the oil. Well, we've just put the bloody thing back on. So I'm not a fan of that idea. So we might be able to do something with the oil tank and put a filler point in that, which would be more practical, I think. So anyway, cheers, thanks for watching, and we'll hopefully see you in the next video.